Good morning, everybody. In the class, we have discussed about what type
మాది
of bite, but one of might born fever, where the larval form will bite the human. At the bite, there will be a characteristic feature, that is formation of a scar, and it involves all the systems of the body, and it is treated with doxycycline. The drug of choice is doxycycline. So the today's topic I have already discussed is tetanus. Tetanus. Okay. Let me. I want to discuss tetanus in the terminology, physiology, clinical features, differential diagnosis, treatment, as usual. Introduction. So the word tetanus are derived from the Greek word. Tetanos means structure. Structure. What is the structure mean? Structure of the muscle, sustained structure or intermediate structure of the muscle. That's why it is called tetanus, structure of the muscle. That means the prime structure that is get involved is muscle. It is described by Hippocrates and in Sushruta also. The tetanus is a neurological disorder characterized by hypertrophy and painful muscular contraction, and it involves the whole, especially face, and it is a vaccine preventable disease, infectious but not contagious. So epidemiology, the tetanus is an international problem. It is seen worldwide. It is mainly through the Clostridium tetanus spores that lies in the soil and infect the wounds where it germinates and release the toxin and affect the body. More common in developing and underdeveloping countries, and more common in agriculture workers and industrial workers, and where there is a farming is a field work. Next, the causative agent. The causative agent is Clostridium tetani. It is an anaerobic motile gram positive and viral and colorless means
అన్ని సామాన్లు పక్క కడగల కొన్ని మంచిగా వదిలేసింది
thermally spores has got the appearance of, because of presence of that spore which is colorless, it gives an appearance of tennis racket or a drumstick. It is found in worldwide in the soil and in inanimate environment or in animal pieces and occasionally human pieces. And the specialty of this spores is they can stay 100 years also, and they are next coming to the host factor. So it affects all the age groups from newborn to 40 years or 50 years, and males are more prone than the females, and agriculture workers are at higher risk compared with other people, and the rural people who are agriculture labor are more prone than urban people. Next, there is no herd immunity. That means if there is a group of patients, so you know what is herd immunity. Now the coronavirus is rapid. Now there is no herd immunity for tetanus, and the environment and social factors are unhygiene custom habits and unhygiene delivery practice that leads to neonatal tetanus. And the routes of entry. The routes of entry are mostly through the wounds, through contamination through the soil. That is, other are travel injuries, road traffic accidents, animal bites, human bites. That's why you will be treated when the people comes with the RTA or with the animal bites to casualty. Open fractures, burns, abscess, and neonatal usually infected umbilical stems. Unhygiene or contaminated umbilical stems and parental drug abuse. And these are, see, all these are wounds and infected wounds where the spores will get staying with environment for a long time and they will generate a toxin, that is tetanus. Next comment. So from here, it is very important. So what happens? What is the pathophysiology behind the tetanus? What is the toxin? How will it affect the body? And which parts of the body is getting, or which system is getting involved? The first most commonly affected symptom is respiratory system. Sorry, nervous system. Sorry, nervous system. So once the toxin is formed at a local site, that is around wound, when the infected wound, the spores get germinate. Usually the spores are into from vegetative and germination. The vegetative forms, the wound produce the toxin. Whereas the spores which germinate forms a toxin which has got two chains. One is a long chain, another is short chain. So the long chain toxin helps in penetration, binding to the nerve, and there is a short chain acts at presynaptic terminal. So this is a little bit about toxin. Tetanospasmin, a exotoxin produced locally related into the bloodstream, released into the bloodstream, bind to the peripheral motor neuron terminals and nerve cells of the anterior spinal cord. The toxin, after entering into the axon, transported through the nerve cell body into the brain and spinal cord. That is a retrograde intraneuronal transport. Retrograde intraneuronal transport. The toxin migrates across the synapse, and in the presynaptic terminal, it blocks the release of, it is not glycine and GABA. So what is the role of normal role of glycine and GABA in a human body means? These are inhibitory neurotransmitters. The glycine, GABA is a inhibitory neurotransmitters in our body, where they inhibit the excitation potentials or uncontrolled potentials in the synaptic terminals to maintain our normal contractions of the nerves. Once the toxin inhibits this GABA and glycine, the inhibitory effect is lost, and there is a continuous stimulation of excitatory transmitters with the involvement of or recruitment of antagonist and agonist models that leads to spasms of the body. You can see in this figure the Clostridium tetani, the tetanospasmin is formed at the wound through germination, from where the tetanospasmin enters through the blood or lymphatic through the nerve into the presynaptic terminal, where it inhibits that inhibited transmitters, so that there is a continuous release of excitatory transmitters. That is pathophysiology. Again, I am reading very simple. Once the spores or the wound, if it is infected with the spores will be benign until they get germinate and form a toxin. The favorable condition to form the toxin or germinate is okay, sorry. Okay. So I'm repeating again pathophysiology. So the infected wound with a Clostridium tetani, where the spores are formed and they are benign and they will stay for a long time. The favorable condition to germinate the spores is low oxygen concentrations. Low oxygen concentration. In a low oxygen concentration, the spores germinates and liberates the toxin, that is tetanospasmin. This tetanospasmin, once released, it spreads through the bloodstream and through the lymphatics and through the nerve in different parts of the body and to the spinal cord and brainstem. Once it is transmitted to the presynaptic junction, that is presynaptic terminal, where it inhibits gamma and the glycine, and once it inhibits the inhibitor neurotransmitters, there will be continuous excitation potentials from uninhibition or excitatory signals, which causes contraction of agonist and antagonist muscles that leads to spasm. Okay. Next. So clinical features. The incubation period is 7 to 21 days, and the period of onset. And the first symptom most of the times is lockjaw, that is involves the face. And so overall, the symptoms are it involves central nervous system, incubation period start. Okay, skip that. So this is it. The triad of muscle resistive spasm, autonomic nerve dysfunction, and the patient has got trismus and spasms of the muscles, and another is three cardinal features are trismus, rhizus sardonicus, opisthotonus, dysphagia, reflex spasm, laryngeal spasm. Okay, now I'll simply explain what is this. So this is rhizus sardonicus is a sustained contraction of facial musculature produced by the feeling expression known as the rhizus sardonicus. Trismus, spasm of the mastocycle, and opisthotonus, that is bowing of the back, that is due to continuous spasm of the neck, back, and the extensors of the leg. That leads to whenever the patient has a continuous these spasms, there is a high chances of aspiration that leads to aspiration pneumonia and respiratory failure. Next, dysphagia. This is because of pharyngeal muscle spasm. The onset is usually insidious over a days. Now, next is reflex spasm. That is a continuous spasm of the muscles. So develop in most of the patient and can be triggered by the minimal stimuli such as a noise, light, touch. Even touch also stimulates the spasms. The spasm lasts second to minutes, become more intense. Increase in frequency with the disease progression and can cause apnea, fractures, dislocation, and rhabdomyolysis. Because of why these complications occurs means because of continuous spasm of a particular joint or a continuous position of a particular joint leads to dislocation, especially shoulder joints, and lysis of the muscle because of continuous spasm. Okay. Next is laryngeal spasm. This is the most dangerous complication. Once the spasms, if involves skeletal muscle does not matter. If it is the involvement of laryngeal muscle, then it leads to laryngeal blockage and asphyxia, death, sudden deaths. The most of the time, the sudden deaths in this is in tetanus is because of laryngeal spasm, and another is because of arrhythmias. There is another system that is get involved is autonomic nervous system. I will tell later. The common cause for death is one is laryngeal spasm, another is arrhythmias. The type of tetanus. So coming to the types, it is generalized, local, and neonatal. So generalized means the whole body is involved. Local tetanus is also called as segmental tetanus. Among them, the most common is cephalic tetanus. This is neonatal tetanus. This is because of infected umbilical stump. That is unhygienic practice of delivery. The most common is generalized tetanus or neonatal tetanus. Next, this is the backward muscles are more powerful than creating the arc backward, opisthotonus. And this is the neonatal tetanus where the baby is completely rigid. You can see the hands, legs, back of the and the neck where it is extended. So the overall clinical features here you can see from head to toe. See head, the patient has got a smiling face, fixed smiling face that is due to a continuous spasm of the facial muscles, and the jaw stiffness that leads to lockjaw. You can see the lockjaw, and the patient will have fever, chills and rigors, restlessness, and exaggerated reflexes, and the profuse sweating because of involvement of autonomic nervous system, and sore throat, irritability, difficulty in swallowing, headache. This is overall. So, what you have to keep in mind in this, it is causes the clinical features. The two important things that you have to keep in mind is it causes a generalized spasms of the body with the intact sensorium. That is very, very important. That is intact. By intact sensorium, we can differentiate tetanus from other disorders. I will tell in the differentiation. Again, I am repeating. Presence of intact sensorium with generalized spasms differentiate tetanus from other disorders. So it is a clinical grading, grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, In grade 3, again divided into severe, that is 3A, and 3B, very severe. So in a grade 1, the patient will have mild to moderate trismus and dangerous spasticity, little or no dysphagia, no respiratory involvement, no respiratory embarrassment. There is no respiratory difficulty. In a moderate, that is grade 2, moderate trismus with general spasticity, some dysphagia and respiratory embarrassment, and fleeting spasms, intermittent spasms. In a severe, along with the two, the patient will have both spontaneous and stimulation, severe and prolonged spasms with a severe dysphagia and respiratory difficulty. And grade 3B as per severe tetanus plus autonomic nerve dysfunction and particularly sympathetic overdrive. So you know, whenever there is a sympathetic overdrive, the patient will have sympathetic overdrive leads to sweating, tachycardia, the heart is getting involved, and the patient will have arrhythmias. Whenever there is a parasympathetic overdrive, the patient will have bradycardia, hypotension, cardiac arrest, and death. Differential diagnosis. What I have to discuss is differential diagnosis for trismus. Trismus, that is lung, like this. Patient is unable to open his mouth, unable to open mouth. So, if trismus occurs, you know, some local pathology also had to be watched, like bilateral temporal joint involvement, or alveolar, that is dental alveolar abscess, or stitching poisoning that we'll discuss in the next class, and dystonic drug reactions. This is you have to keep in mind. So phenothiazines and metoclopramide. This metoclopramide nowadays earlier and hypocalcemic tetanus. These are the differential diagnosis for trismus. And to the meningitis, encephalitis, rabies, or other disorders where you have to differentiate, where the patient will have a rigidity. But here the sensorium is last. The sensorium is last. As encephalitis involves the brain. Okay. Next, acute abdomen. You know, the acute abdomen like perforation, peritonitis, where they cause a local rigidity. Local rigidity. So it has to be differentiated from segmental or local tetanus. Markedly increased tone in the central muscles with the superimposed generalized spasms and relatively sparing of the hands and feet strongly suggests the tetanus. When you got a doubt or when you have the clinical pictures are mixing with other disorders, if there is a relatively sparing of the hands and feet, then you have to keep in mind that with some evidence of wound, a dirty wound, then or infected wound, then you have to strongly suggest the tetanus. Next, coming to the treatment. The treatment protocols are one, the treatment is divided into one, investigations and treatment. So management divided into one is investigations, another is treatment. Investigations, it is a purely clinical diagnosis. It is a purely clinical diagnosis. But if your facilities are there, if you are suspecting a tetanus, then you can estimate the serum toxin, antitoxin levels. If the antitoxin levels are more than 0.1 international unit per ml, then it almost excludes the tetanus. Coming to the general measures. So before going to the general measures, what is the goals of the therapy? What is the goals of the therapy? Here, the prime thing is two things. One is toxin, another is respiratory system, another is control of the spasm, another is take caring of the aspiration, and another is very, very important is when the patient has got involvement of autonomic nervous system, that to take care of the heart. So these are the goals. The prime goal of tetanus treatment is neutralizing the toxin. Which toxin? The toxin which is unbounded. Once the toxin is bounded to the neurons, we cannot do anything. We can do what is the toxin which is moving in the blood, we can neutralize by giving some antibodies. So that is a prime goal. And another is remaining our supportive treatment, like keep the patient admitted in a quiet room. Quiet room means lying in a quiet room means or in a dark room means. So to prevent stimulus reflex problems, because if you keep in a light, the light itself causes. If you keep in a where there is a some sound producing rooms, or where there is a noisy producing rooms. Again, the noise will stimulate the reflex organs. So antibiotic therapy. Coming to the antibiotics, as such, still there is a controversy regarding the antibiotics. Which antibiotic is useful? But they are using penicillin and metronidazole. Both are showing good results. Penicillin is giving 12 lakh units IV for 10 days, and metronidazole 500 mg QAD or 1 gram BD we are giving. But still there is a little bit controversy regarding the antibiotics. So here you have to keep in mind two things. So what is the role of antibiotics as such for tetanus, as such for infected wounds? So we should be very clear. So here, as such, the tetanus that does not do anything in the wound, or it does not cause wound infection. It just infects with a Clostridium tetani, the spores will stay in it. If the wound is not infected, that is, we can say secondary infection to some other organism, that can lead to sepsis, death, and multi-organ failure. That is wounds. So, according to the blood culture, according to the wound culture, you can go for antibiotic for secondary infection of the wound. But as such for tetanus, there is a limited role of antibiotics. We are using still as a penicillin and metronidazole. I am clear. As such for a tetanus, there is no role of there is a limited role of penicillin and metronidazole. They are showing good results. But if the wound is secondary infected with some other organism, the antibiotics has great role. Decide the antibiotics by sending the cultures, blood cultures, tissue cultures, or the wound culture. Okay. Next is antitoxin. Antitoxin. This is immunoglobulins. So this is one. So the toxin which is in the blood should be neutralized by giving this antitoxin. The antitoxins are two types. One is from which is prepared from the human body, another is from equine. Nowadays, the equine is not used because it has got a lot of side effects. The human immunoglobulins are here, that is a TAG, is a preparation of choice and is given promptly. The dose is 3,000 to 6,000 units IM, usually in a divided doses because of large volume. And the optimal dose is not known. However, the results from study indicate that even 500 units dose has effect as higher dose. Okay. Next, that is equine tetanus antitoxin, which is not used nowadays because of lot of side reactions. And the half-life is also very short for equine compared with the human. Human has got a long half-life. Next, control of the spasms. Alone or in combination. That means alone or in combination means you can use a single drug or you can use multiple drugs. So here what happens? The main pathophysiology is inhibition of GABA. That is the main pathophysiology by toxin. So we can use to control the spasms the antagonists, agonists of some. So we have to give for agonists for GABA like benzodiazepines. So we'll use diazepam, benzodiazepine, GABA agonists in use. The doses are depends on presence of severity of the spasms. You can also give medicine. And recent trials have shown that magnesium sulfate as well used for to control the spasms. The routes of administration, you can go for continuous infusion, or intrathecal, or and respiratory care. So, how the respiratory system get involved in tetanus? One, two ways. As such, the tetanus toxin causes respiratory failure. One, or because of spasm of laryngeal muscle, that is causes acute respiratory failure. The two things we have to keep. And we have to anticipate the severity of laryngeal spasm or respiratory failure by regular monitoring of saturation and respiratory rate. You can, if your facilities are provided, you can go for ABG also. You can predict respiratory failure. So, then how will you give the respiratory failure? What way you give the respiratory failure? You have to replace the respiration. That's all. You cannot do anything for it. The better way is you have to go for intubation and you have to keep them ventilated. Or if you are unable to do intubation, intubation means to keep a tube through the pharynx, larynx, under the trachea. Because of laryngeal scarring, again if you are stimulating, there is this strategy. To prevent that, sometimes what happens, in an anticipated, in a precautious way, you go for tracheostomy, where you will cut here. If necessary, we'll keep the ventilator or we'll take care of the tracheostomy care. Okay. If the lung is got infected because of respiration, then you have to go for antibiotics. You have to keep protocols of aspirated pneumonia. Autonomic dysfunction. So here there are two systems. It allow the toxin which enters into the nerve will affect the sympathetic parasympathetic situated in the lateral halves of the spinal cord, and the in some patients there will be a sympathetic over there. In patients there is a parasympathetic over there. If there is a sympathetic over there, you know that causes hypertension, tachycardia, and arrhythmia. Where you have to give the blockers like labetalol and esmolol, beta blockers to control the heart rate. If there is hypertensive unresponse, then you have to go for the centrally acting drugs like imidine, verapamil, and morphine. Verapamil to control the arrhythmias. And vaccine. Patient recovery from the tetanus should be actively immunized because immunity is not induced with a small amount of toxin required to produce the disease. I will tell you what is the vaccine, what is the protocol. So this is a vaccine protocol. So when you have to give a vaccine, so I will discuss the vaccine in the next class along with diphtheria, but have a short look on this. So prevention. Vaccine is given for partially immune patient, non-immune patient, patient recovering from the disease. The doses are 0, first month and 6 months. Later the booster doses are 10 years or 60 years. So this is the vaccine schedule for age. So T, D, TAP, D, TP, DP, or D, TAP. So what is this? I will tell you. See, 2 months, 4 months, 6 months. So again, 1 year, again 10 years. So you should know what is meant by full forms of this. Diphtheria, tetanus, acellular pertussis, diphtheria, tetanus, diphtheria, acellular pertussis. D means diphtheria, T means tetanus, A for AP means acellular pertussis. The schedule is 2, 3, 4 is the first initial 6 months 3 doses, followed by booster dose at 1 year, followed by every 10 years. That is normal. People always miss tetanus or vaccines. This is for children. 2 months, 4 months, 6 months, and 1.5 years, then 4 years, then 10 years. Neonatal tetanus is totally different entity. And prognosis. The mortal rates are high because of respiratory failure. The outcome is poor in neonates and in elderly, and patients with a shorter incubation period of more days, shorter interval from onset of symptoms and admission, shorter period from the onset of symptoms to first spasm period. These are the prognostic factors. Okay. Let me give a brief about what we have discussed now. Tetanus is an infectious disease which is non-contagious and it can be preventable through vaccines. That is, now I am telling paper. It is caused by Clostridium tetani. The Clostridium tetani is present in soil, that is spores are present in the soil. The spores will infect the wounds through wounds means any type of wounds, that is cuts or diabetic foot, whatever wounds. In the wounds, the spores will germinate or they will stay in a vegetative form. The vegetative form is non-harmful to the human. When the spores are formed because autolysis, the spores are release a toxin called tetanospasmin. The tetanospasmin by autocleavage, it will divide it into short chain and long chain. This long chain helps into the entry and binding the non-terminal. Short chain acts as the synaptic terminal and inhibits GABA and glycine. Normally, GABA and glycine are inhibitor neurons at synapse. Once they get inhibited, the uninhibited effect of continuous stimulation leads to involvement or recruitment of an antagonist and agonist muscles. That leads to continuous spasms. Once it involves in the spinal cord, it involves antiron cells along with the lateral columns also. In the lateral columns, it involves parasympathetic and sympathetic. The sympathetic overdrive leads to all the symptoms. Parasympathetic drive leads to bradycardia and death. And clinical features coming to, it involves the whole body. It involves the whole body spasms. That is called general tetanus. It involves the segment, cephalic or local. Next, the prime features are trismus, lockjaw, bovine erythrocytosis, and it involves other systems also directly or indirectly, especially respiratory system, directly by nerves, indirectly by aspiration, the conduct because of spasm of pharyngeal and laryngeal muscles, and it is diagnosed. Coming to the diagnosis, it is diagnosed clinically rather than investigations. Coming to the treatment is broadly divided into one, antibiotics, another is toxin, vaccination, management of wound, and differentiation. So coming to the antibiotic, I already discussed. The antibiotic part is divided into two. As such, tetanus, Clostridium tetani, there is a limited role of penicillin and metronidazole. If the wound has got secondary infection, you can go for the antibiotics for that infection after getting culture reports. Antitoxin is two types, where with the antibodies, human immunoglobulins and the equine. Equine is not used because of reactions, anaphylactic reactions. Now, worldwide, human antibodies are used. Next, coming to the respiratory care, I already said the respiratory care is in the two ways: to provide ventilation and tracheostomy and physiotherapy. Next is vaccination. The vaccination is active immunization, where the vaccination consists of two things: wound management and vaccination. Already I have discussed about the vaccination. What is meant by D, T, A, P and D, T, D, P. I have already clearly explained. D means diphtheria, T means tetanus, AP means acidular pertussis. So three will be together. And the wound management is totally different. Wound management, once you have suspected the wound is infected, go for vaccine, that is tetanus, diphtheria with the TD, along with antibiotics. That is, wound is managed in a two ways. One is vaccination and another is giving antibiotics, killing the wound. That is debridement, nothing but antibiotics. Next, finally, the prognosis is bad if it is short duration. Okay, so the specialty of the tetanus is it is a infectious disease which is non-contagious. It is very, very important. It is infectious disease which is non-contagious. So thank you.